Okay, let's start with the prayers. We can do it all together. Om Sadashiva-Samaramdham Shankaracharya-Madhyamam
मध्यमा
Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande
वन्दे
Guru-Paramparam
गुरुपरम्पराम्
Saraswati Namastuभ्यं
नमस्तुभ्यं
Varade
वरदे
Kamarupi
कामरूपिणि
Vidyarambham
विद्यारम्भं
Karishyami
करिष्यामि
Siddhirbhavatu me
सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा
Om
ॐ
Sahana Bhavatu
सहना भवतु
Sahano
सहनौ
Bhunaktu
भुनक्तु
Sah
सह
Veeriyam
वीर्यं
Karavavahai
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
Om
ॐ
Shanti
शान्ति
Shanti
शान्ति
Shanti
शान्तिः
वासुदेवेन्द्रयोगीन्द्रं
वासुदेवेन्द्रयोगीन्द्रम्
नत्वा
नत्वा
ज्ञानप्रदं
ज्ञानप्रदं
गुरुं
गुरुम्
मुमुक्षूणां हितार्थाय तत्त्वबोधोऽभिधीयते नमः। Okay, right. So last class we had started the topic of Samashti Vicharaha, the analysis of the totality. And we saw this verse, Atha Chaturvimshati Tatvopatti Prakaram Vakshyamaha. The author says, I will now explain to you about the creation of 24 different Tattvam. Tattvam means a basic principle. So the generation of creation of 24 Tattvams, I will now explain. And then he says, Brahmashraya Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti. So last time we were discussing about Maya. The word here in the end, Maya Asti, means Maya is there. And then he has described this Maya a little bit. So one of the description he gives is Brahmashraya. Brahmashraya means dependent on Brahman. Ashraya means to take refuge or to be dependent. So Brahmashraya means dependent on Brahman. So it conveys the idea that this Maya is not something that exists independently. Okay, it depends on Brahman. And what does it depend for? For its existence itself. So Maya depends on Brahman, which is conveyed with the word Brahmashraya. And he further describes this Maya as Trigunatmika, meaning it has three gunas. The three gunas are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So it has three gunas, three qualities, three attributes, and those three are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Now, last class we discussed what is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. We said Sattva is Jnana Shakti, the faculty of knowing. Then we said Rajas is Kriya Shakti, the faculty of doing, and Tamas is Dravya Shakti, the inertial faculty, the power of inertia. What does inertia do? It suppresses the other two. Okay, so this is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, Maya. So this is the author's introductory verse about Maya, and we were looking at it in some more detail. We saw this table. So I hope you all remember the differences. Maya is the matter principle. Maya is Jada, meaning it does not have consciousness of its own. Maya is Anadi. It is without any beginning. Then it is Mithya. Mithya means dependently existent on Brahman. Triguna, three aspects, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And Savikaraha, it is constantly changing. And Brahman is the opposite except for the Anadi part. Brahman is also Anadi. Maya is also Anadi, Brahman also Anadi. But it is important to understand that both of them are not independently infinite entities. Maya is a dependent on Brahman. Okay, so till here we have seen, till this portion, any questions, any doubts?
Medaji, you said Sattva is Jnana Shakti.
Yeah,
What are the names for Rajas and Tamas?
Rajas is Kriya Shakti
Okay,
and Tamas is Dravya Shakti.
thank you.
Okay. So now we'll continue the discussion about Maya for a little bit more. So last time we had also looked at some more features of Maya. Other than what is listed here, there are some more descriptions for Maya. One of them is Avyaktam. Avyaktam means unmanifested. And in that unmanifest state, what happens? This Maya is in a non-differentiated state. So that is why there is no difference between the individual Karana Sharirams, and in fact, there's no difference between anything at all. Everything exists as potential, formless, unmanifest state. And in a non-differentiated way, there's no way to make out the differences between various entities. Okay, so this is Avyaktam. Then Shakti. Shakti. So Shakti means power. We said Maya has two powers, Avarna Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti, the veiling power and the projecting power. So it projects the whole universe as well as veils the reality of the universe. So I forget the fact that I am Brahman. I am Sat. That I forget. And what do? I believe that I am the body mind sense complex. I believe I am the impermanent thing. Okay, so I have forgotten that I am the permanent thing and I believe I am the impermanent thing. There is a mutual exchange or mutual superimposition. The existence part I have taken from Brahman and I know I exist. But that the limitedness of the body I have superimposed on Brahman. So there is a confusion. I know I'm there, but I don't know what I am. So this mutual adhyasa, superimposition, is there. It is Shakti. And another interesting uh, point about this word Shakti is whenever we say power, whenever we say the word power of something, for example, power of writing. If I have the power of painting, suppose I have a painting power, that painting power is dependent on me, right? So again, this word Shakti, the word power, goes to show that this Maya is not an independent entity. It depends on Brahman because the power cannot exist independent of the person, right? So this example we will see in more elaboration in just a little bit. Then we said this Maya is avidya. Avidya has 2 points. One is avidya means swataha na vidyate iti avidya. That which has no existence on its own is avidya. And second, it must be negated by correct knowledge. So whatever is avidya is wrong knowledge and it is negated by correct knowledge. And Swami Dayananda, just recently, this week itself, a quote came out on Facebook of Swami Dayananda's, which says, ignorance or avidya is not the absence of knowledge. Absence of knowledge can not create problem. Absence of something will not create this kind of a problem. Avidya is there, it exists. So it is wrong knowledge, misconception. Okay, and that is why this wrong knowledge can be corrected with correct knowledge. So avidya is opposed to vidya. Ignorance is opposed to knowledge. Therefore, ignorance must also exist. It cannot be the absence of knowledge. Okay. So that was one more meaning, avidya. Then, of course, we know Trigunatmika. Then Maya is also Karyanumeva. Karyanumeva means it is never perceptible, only inferable. You can only have inferential knowledge about this Avyakta Maya. We can never, see this Avyakta Maya. In that non-differentiated state, first of all, there are no eyes to see with, right? And secondly, even if you could see, there is nothing to see because everything is in a non-differentiated, formless, unmanifest, potential state. So there is nothing to see and nothing with which to see. So it is never perceptible, only inferable. How do we infer? Based on this creation around us. So this creation around us has three gunas, has certain properties. So based on this, we know about the potential state. Because we discussed the rule last time, Karana Gunaha Karye Anuvartante. The features of the cause pervade the effect. So whatever is available in the effect, it must be there in the cause. So it must be contained in the cause, and this is the inference. So for example, suppose, there is a photo. Suppose you see a photo. What is one of the inferences you can draw whenever you look at a photo?
Like this is photo of which character? Is a nature or some person?
What is the inference? Now, I'm not talking about what is in the photo. What is the inference that you can draw every time you look at a photo? Any photo.
Is it that the photo says that something exists, whatever's in the photo?
It is
What exists?
The
me.
person in the photo
Me.
or whatever. He's
I.
This one existed.
Something that you can't see now, but it has to have been there for the photo to be there.
Form? Memories.
Very simple answer, actually.
The time in which the photo was taken.
Okay, you're getting warmer, but not the time,
Is it a form?
not form.
Is it existence?
Where just simple photo. So
Past.
it's not light either. Light is a different example. Here, the example is different. So every time you look at a photo, a camera must have been there, right? You can't see the camera now, but for that photo to be there, there must have been a camera. Yes?
Yes.
So this is inference. Every time you see or look at any photo, there would have been somebody who took that photo with a camera. And now that camera is not available for you to see, but through inference, because the photo is here, you know that camera was also there. This is Karyanumeva, not perceptible, but inferable. So you have inferential knowledge. Okay, is this clear? Till here, any questions? So let's try to understand this Maya a little bit more with another example. Suppose, let's say you are a dancer, okay? Or you can take whatever you like, painting, writing, whatever. We'll go with dancer. So let us say you are a dancer. So basically what that means is that you have a dancing talent. So there is you, and then you have some dancing talent. That dancing potential exists in you, right? Now, let us understand the relationship between this dancing talent and the person carefully. Can the person exist without the dancing talent?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Suppose somehow I remove that dancing talent, this person can continue to exist. But reverse, is it possible? Can the dancing talent exist without the person?
No.
If person goes away and I say leave the dancing talent here, you go. Is that possible?
No.
No, right? So this is the relationship. So this person is independent, but the dancing talent depends on that person for its existence. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So when this dancing talent is engaged, when it is activated, what happens? The dancer is born, right? So the person is there and now he has activated his dancing talent and he begins to dance. So now he is the dancer and the dance begins, right? But it is important to remember and understand that the dancer and the dancing potential both depend on the person. If I say leave the dancer here, but let the person go away, is that possible?
No.
No.
Because the dancer is the person plus dancing talent, right? Do you understand this?
Yeah.
The dancer is born only when both are there. The dancing talent has to be engaged and the person has to be there. The person is existent and he is engaging the dancing talent. Then we have the dance. And remember, dance is nothing but a manifestation of the dancer. You can never separate dance and dancer, right? Whatever the dancer is doing, that is only dance. So when we say dancer is born, it is nothing but the combination of these two things, the person and dancing talent. And then the dancer is born. But this dancer is also a dependent entity on the person. If the person is not there, then dancer, dancing talent, nothing is there.
They,
Right?
co-
Hmm?
they coexist, Letaji. They
Not
have,
coexist, it's a dependent existence. Person is the independent existence.
okay.
Coexist means it can mean that they exist independently also.
Okay.
This is not the case. The dance, the dancer, the dancing potential, all of these things depend on the person for their existence.
Okay.
Okay, so now coming back to our Brahman and Maya, the person is like Brahman, independent existence. That dancing potential, the dancing power, Shakti, that is like Maya. And when the two, come together and the dancing potential is engaged, what happens? The dance begins. When Brahman and Maya come together and the Maya is activated, then creation begins. Okay. So this creation is called as Ishvara. So Ishvara, the technical definition is Maya Sahita Brahman. Brahman plus Maya is equal to Ishvara. This is the technical definition of the word Ishvara. And going forward, whenever in Vedantic studies the word Ishvara comes, this is the meaning. Okay, Brahman plus Maya. This Atma Anatma mixture, this whole creation that exists because of this Maya Brahman mixture, that is Ishvara. And this Ishvara, it can also refer to Maya in the Avyakta state plus Brahman, Maya in the Vyakta state plus Brahman. In Vyakta state, it is nothing but this whole creation that we see around us. So Ishvara is nothing but Jagat or nothing but Maya plus Brahman.
Netaji, could you mute everyone because there's some disturbance?
Okay. Any questions? Have you all understood the
So
dance
Medaji,
of? Yes.
so what you're saying is that God, there's an element of Maya in God himself?
There's an element of
Maya in God himself or itself?
God is Maya plus Brahman.
So if we, let's say, worship Krishna as Ishvara or any particular deity as Ishvara, it is also Maya.
Yes. See, you need Maya to worship also, right? You need your body and your mind to worship anything. Is that
Medhaji,
not Maya? So,
Medhaji, when we say Maya Sahit Brahman, it also implies that Maya is separate from Brahman, but that you said is not possible because then both will become
no,
finite.
it is not separate. It can never be separate.
So, but when we say Maya Sahit Brahman, that doesn't that imply that they are two different entities?
It means, see, there is this entity, what we are calling Ishvara, is this Maya Brahman mixture. They cannot, Maya and Brahman, first of all, cannot be separated or cannot exist separately. But we are making a classification of Maya and Brahman, right? So we are saying you are not Maya, you are Brahman, you are consciousness principle itself. But for the purpose, when we talk about creation, when we talk about, in fact, the whole body mind sense complex, it is a mixture of Atma and Anatma.
So
That,
even with Maya Sahit Brahman, that is why we are Ishvara.
yes, everything in creation is Ishvara because everything in creation is Maya plus Brahman. You know, as you go on, as you go further into the studies, you will realize actually there's no such thing called Maya. What is there is only Brahman. But at the beginning stages, to help with the understanding, we have to lay some foundation, right? So that is why we say there is Brahman, there is Maya, as though there are two things, but actually there are no two things. That is why the name Advaita, non-duality, only one thing. That one thing is Brahman. But to reach that stage, we have to go through some more, stepping stones. So this Maya Brahman differentiation is one such stepping stone. Eventually, when you reach some Bhagavad Gita and later Upanishads also, there's no such thing called Maya at all.
So Maya is there so that we can understand that Brahman is.
It is
Brahman.
there. It is there for now, just to help you identify what is Brahman, because till now everything in our experience is anatma, because when we discussed the previous topics, sukshma, sthula, karana, shariram, everything, panchakoshas, whatever we know from the external world to our own bodies, to the minds, thoughts, emotions, intellect, everything we know is anatma. But there is a confusion. I think I am this body. I think I am my thought. But in order to bring clarity, in order to bring the correct knowledge, first the misconception has to be removed. First, I have to be told that you are not this body, you are not the thought, you are not the mind. Because till now I have believed I am all these things. So, first, these things have to be removed. The idea of anatma is introduced just to help remove these misconceptions, because these conditionings are very deep. If directly I tell you are Brahman consciousness principle, it is difficult to digest, difficult to understand, follow. It is more easy to discard that information. But first, if the idea is introduced that, see, you are not this body, you are not the mind, then the curiosity comes. Okay, then actually, what am I? Right?
Yeah, just to lead you to understand that this Advaita philosophy, you have Maya.
You have it in the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you.
There is a method of unfolding in the scriptures. You will find there is a method of unfolding the teaching, presenting the teaching. So in the beginning, more advanced topics are not taught. Stepping stones are taught. Even if you say there are two things, Brahman and Maya, it's okay as a stepping stone. Slowly, slowly, you will reach the level where you'll realize there is only Brahman. It is like, when there is a baby, you don't give a 2-month-old baby a pizza, right? You have to give it soft food. You have to give mashed up rice or Cerelac or something very soft, because the baby doesn't have teeth, doesn't have a very strong digestive power. But as the baby grows, then you can give anything and the baby will eat, right? As the baby becomes an adult. So it is the same. In the beginning, we are still in the beginning, we have to give small portions of digestible information. And then you can advance, step it up. Once the foundation is strong. Right. Anything else? Okay. So this Brahman and Maya, it is important to understand that both of them are required for creation. As we have discussed, Brahman does not act on its own. Brahman cannot do anything. Brahman is akarta. Brahman does not talk. Brahman does not think. Brahman does not move. Why cannot Brahman move?
Because it is the only thing.
Formless. It is formless.
It is omnipresent.
If it is omnipresent, what happens? Why can't it move?
Because
It's
there is
everywhere.
Hmm?
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, so
not move.
it is everywhere. So where is there to move? If something is there everywhere, is there anywhere for it to move to? So Brahman cannot move. Brahman cannot talk, cannot think, cannot do anything. Brahman cannot say I am Brahman also. Okay. But this Maya Brahman combination, the mixture, what is there, Atma Anatma mixture, that is creation, and that has the ability to say Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. So you need Maya even in order to say Aham Brahmasmi. Okay, they have a weird, intricate relationship which takes a lot of time to understand, a lot of mananam to digest this Maya Brahman relationship. And so, yeah, coming back to the dancer example, there's one more point I want to mention. Have you all seen that Nataraja statue or photo of Nataraja?
Yes.
Dancing form of Shiva. So this is actually a kind of symbolic representation of this Maya Brahman concept. If you see that Nataraja statue, you will see that his hair is flying, like as though he is in motion, right? He's as though he is moving, and that is why the hair is flying. But that is this dancing potential concept is symbolically represented in this dancing Nataraja. So the Shiva, when he engages his dancing potential, his dancing talent, then they say creation begins, right? And as long as he's dancing, creation goes on. That is what we were also saying, that as long as Maya is in this Vyakta state, there is creation. There is this whole universe. And what happens when the dance ends? They say that when the dance ends, it is the end of the universe. But for us as Vedantins, we are okay with it because we know that it just goes back to potential state. There's nothing to worry because again, next time it will start, right? So this is the Vedantic understanding of that Tandava Nataraja dance. So this is the dancer dancing potential example, and I hope it is very clear. Are there any questions? If there are any doubts, please get it clarified now before we move on.
When we are studying this Tattva Bodha, we have to consider as a basis that Brahman, there is something that is infinite, Ad Sat, Juga Sat, like Satya and Nirgun and Nirvikara is there. That even if we don't know, we have to assume at this stage.
That is why you have Shastras. Shastra is your pramanam when it comes to Atma or Brahman. Because with your regular pramanam, what is a pramanam means? A means of knowledge, the instrument for gaining any knowledge. Regularly, what pramanam do we have? We have the sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, and all these things. But when it comes to this Atma, when we start talking about Atma, Shastra becomes the pramanam. The way you trust your eyes to give you information about color, in the same way, we have to trust Shastra when it comes to Atma. Because when there is any pramanam, suppose eyes, if the eye tells me that something is red in color, my ears cannot show me that this is red in color, nor can it tell me that this is not red in color. So I have to trust my eyes when it comes to color. In the same way, when it comes to Atma, I have to trust Shastra. That is Shraddha, Sadhana, Chatushtayam. So yes, the knowledge about Atma is available from Shastra, and we have to keep our faith on Shastra.
And also the teacher.
Yes, absolutely. Guru Vedanta Vakyadishu Vishvasa Shraddha.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so now just to confuse you all a little more, because I like to do I have taken a verse from Viveka Chudamani. Okay, here it says verse number 111, but the book I was referring it's verse number 109. So some difference is there, but around this range you will probably find this verse if you need it. So I'll just read this verse and then I will explain. In this verse, Shankaracharya is talking about Maya. So he says, Sannapya Sannapya Ubayatmikano, Bhinnapya Bhinnapya Ubayatmikano, Sangapya Nanga Hubayatmikano, Mahadbhuta Nirvachaniya Rupa. So now we will look at this verse and understand a little more about Maya. So in this verse, it's a very nice, beautiful verse, one of my favorites, little tricky, but very thought-provoking. So in this verse, Shankaracharya raises 9 questions about Maya and he answers the 9 questions about Maya. So the first line has 3 questions. It breaks basically as Sat na api, Asat, here it becomes Asat na api, Ubhayatmika no. Okay, so where I have drawn the line, that is the 3 parts of this sentence. So the first question is Maya Sat? So Shankaracharya is asking the question, is Maya Sat? So let's discuss. Do you think Maya is Sat?
No,
Why?
it is dependently existent.
Okay. What will happen if Maya is Sat? What is Sat, first of all?
Whatever is permanent is Sat.
Yes.
So,
Whatever is permanent is. If something has to be called Sat, it has to be changeless in nature, because any change is a destruction of one thing and a creation of something else. So anything that you call Sat has to be changeless, like Brahman. Brahman is an eternal, changeless entity. So this Maya, now can you call it Sat? Is Maya changeless in nature? Or is
No.
it changing in nature?
No, it is
Changing in nature all the time.
It is
It is changing in nature. So can you call it Sat?
No.
No.
No. You cannot call Maya as Sat. Moreover, when Shastram says Ekam Sat, and that meaning only one thing is Sat, and that position is already occupied by Brahman. So you cannot say that Maya is Sat. So then, is Maya Asat? Asat means opposite of Sat, not non-existent. Asat.
No.
Why?
It's very much there.
It is borrowed existence. It is dependently existent. So if it is existent, it cannot be not there.
If it is existent, it cannot be non-existent, right? That is the answer. So when you look around you, you see the world. And we know that the cause of this world is Maya. That means a non-existent cause cannot have an existent effect. It is like, a child without a parent. If the parent is non-existent, can the child come into existence?
No.
No. So the parents has to be there first. Then only the child can come. So if this creation is there, that means Maya must be there. It must be existent. It cannot be not there. It has to be there. So Maya, you cannot say it is Asat also. So Maya is not Sat. Maya cannot be said to be Asat also. It is not non-existent. So then he asks, is it Ubhaya? Ubhaya means both, existent and non-existent. Is that possible, do you think?
Yes.
Can something be light and dark at the same time?
Not
No.
at the same time,
No.
but different times it can exist and not exist.
No, nothing can come out of non-existence. It must always be there in order to come into existence.
Okay.
So there's no traveling in and out of existence. In fact, the very thing you said, it is one of the philosophies. I think Buddhism has this philosophy that you flicker in and out of existence. And in the Bhashyam of 18th chapter, Shankaracharya, he elaborately dismisses this view. Very involved argument about how this is not possible. So we are not going there now, but the point is, nothing can go in and out of existence. So is it possible for something to be both existent and non-existent at the same time? Is it possible for
State of
something
nirvana.
No, no,
Is it possible for something to be light and dark at the same time?
no.
Compared to something else.
Something cannot be light and dark at the same time, right? Two opposites cannot coexist at the same time. So it is not possible for something to be Sat and Asat both. So this Ubhaya, both option also you cannot say. So you cannot say Maya is Sat, you cannot say Maya is Asat, and you cannot say it is both. Is this clear? There are logical backings for each
Why
of
we cannot say Maya is Asat?
Asat means non-existent. So it
So
cannot
it does
be
not have its own
non-existent.
existence, so it's non-existent.
No.
No.
Own existence is different from non-existence.
Okay, means we see that, so that means there is some existence, but
Yes.
not its own existence.
Yes, that is Mithya. We have discussed. Mithya is a different category altogether. Here we are talking it is there or not there. So when we look at creation all around us, is it there or not there?
There. Yes.
So how can you say it is
There.
Asat? It is not possible to say it is Asat. So it is not Sat, it is not Asat, and it is not Ubhaya. It is not both, right? So then he raises the next batch of 3 questions in the next line. Bhinna na api, abhinna na api, ubhayatmika, no. Bhinna, bhinna means different. He's asking now, is it different from Brahman? Can you say Maya is different from Brahman?
Yes, because it's
No.
changeable always.
No. If we say it is different from Brahman, then Brahman cannot be limitless.
Yes, that is the answer. So if you say something is different from Brahman, Brahman is no longer an infinite entity because that different thing becomes some separate thing, right? So the moment you say Maya is different from Brahman, Brahman is not infinite anymore. Also, Maya cannot exist independently. This is also we have discussed. So it is not possible to say that Maya is different from Brahman. So then
But
can we say,
Maya is changeable and has form, so this is difference from Brahman.
but can it be separate from Brahman? What you are asking is coming in the next thing. Abhinna na api. So can you say that they are same? Maya and Brahman, are they the same?
Dependent on that.
That's what, no, they have different forms and they're changeable, so that's why
So
it's
you're
not
saying
same.
they are not same. So you cannot say Maya is the same as Brahman. You cannot say Maya is the same as Brahman. Why? Because if they are same, like you said, Maya is a changing thing. Brahman is a non-changing thing. Maya is a jada thing. Brahman is a is Chaitanya Tattvam. It is a conscious, sentient thing. Maya has, we listed all those differences, no? Brahman and Maya. So Maya is definitely different from Brahman. But we just now discussed that Maya cannot be different from Brahman. So we are saying Maya is not different from Brahman, nor is it the same as Brahman. And definitely Ubhaya, both is not an option. Can something be different and same at the same time? Logically, not possible. It is logically invalid to say that something is different and same at the same time. So I hope you are confused by now.
Actually, it is very deep, so it will take time to assimilate it.
Yes, Shankaracharya is like that. For every half line of his, we require a lot of mananam time. It's like that. So Maya is
Last
not.
time that Maya,
Yeah.
Medhaji, you had told last time that Maya is beyond any logical categorization.
Yeah, we
So
are coming
that
to
is,
that.
that is why.
Yes, we are coming to that. So Maya is not Sat. Maya is not Asat. Maya is not both Sat and Asat. Maya is not Bhinna, different from Brahman. Nor is it same as Brahman. And definitely it cannot be both same and different. So 6 questions asked, 6 questions answered. Last question. So the last part says Sa anga na api, Sa anga na api, na anga, and then he ubhayatmika no. So sa anga breaks as sa anga, with parts, and na anga, this is without parts. So the question now that has come up is, does Maya have parts? Can you say that Maya has parts or no? So does Maya have parts? What do you think?
No.
No parts? So if you say Maya has no parts, then how do you explain Sattva, Rajas and Tamas?
Maya
If there
is
are parts
infinite.
of Maya, then how to explain Sattva, Rajas and Tamas?
Those are qualities, I think.
Properties.
Properties.
And if you say Maya has no parts, see, one thing we have to understand is that anything that has parts is a product. Like if you take a car is put together, right? You take different parts, you take the wheels, you take the steering wheel, and all these different parts, you put them together, you assemble it together, and that product is called a car. So whenever you say that Maya has parts or anything has parts, it is put together, it is a product. And anything that is a product is born in time and expires in time. But we have said Maya is anadi, it cannot be born and definitely does not die. So Maya is not a product. Maya is not a product. In fact, it is the very cause, the causeless cause. So Maya cannot be a product, and therefore it cannot be said to be with parts. But if you say there are no parts, then how to explain Sattva, Rajas and Tamas? So you cannot say it is with parts. You cannot say it is without parts. And definitely both, with and without, two opposites. Definitely both is not an option at all. It is logically invalid. So this Maya, see all the 9 options now. Not Sat, not Asat, not both. Then not different, not same, not both. Then not with parts, not without parts, and definitely not both. Do you see the problem now? That whatever we try to do, however we try to categorize Maya, it is not possible. Any category you put it into, there is a problem, a logical defect in that. And this non-categorizable, not explainable by logic, you cannot divide it with the intellect or with logic. This non-categorizable entity is called as anirvachaniya. The word anirvachaniya means cannot be categorized by the intellect. Okay, cannot be categorized by the intellect. So then what to do now, right? So that is why Shankaracharya says Maha Adbhuta. What is Adbhuta?
Bodh is Gyan.
Adbhuta.
Is
So
it
Unique.
unique?
it is unique, okay?
Amazing.
Amazing. It is a wonder. Maha Adbhuta means it is a great wonder that is not explainable in words. Because any word you use is just wrong. If you say Sat, it is wrong. If you say Asat, it is wrong. So when you say Maha Adbhuta, it means it is the greatest wonder, great wonder. It cannot be understood at all. It is only to be accepted and experienced. So the example is like a magic show. You know, when you go to the magic show, what happens? Have you seen that trick where they put the girl inside the box and then they cut the box in half? But then the girl comes out. She's fine. Nothing has been cut. So, you know, you saw her going inside the box. You saw the box being cut. But now you are seeing the girl who is whole. Nothing has happened to her. So on one side you saw her being cut. On one side she is fine. Maha Adbhuta. It is a wonder. You can't explain it because your perception tells you two contradictory things, right? Cutting also happened. She's fine also. So two contradictions are there. But it is a wonder. And you are left with this feeling of wow. So that is Maya. Cannot understand it. And as we have logically shown, Maya is quite illogical. So Maya cannot be understood by the intellect. It cannot be categorized by the intellect in any way.
So you are saying it through a verse, text, and message that it cannot be understood in an intellectual way.
Yes, it cannot be understood in an intellectual way. We can try, definitely we have to try, but the conclusion is that it is anirvachaniya.
But if we get it, do we know? If we understand, if we experience that, do we know that we have got that?
Right now also you are experiencing Maya. Everything that you experience with your sense organs, your own body, your thoughts, all of that is an experience of Maya itself.
Okay.
So by now, you know, you all must be thinking, okay, what is the point of Vedanta classes? I can't understand Maya, I can't experience Brahman. Is there any point in coming back to these classes? So it takes time to digest this Maya concept. It takes, in fact, several years. So it's okay. Just keep trying. And any questions?
Medhaji, in the last class, you had also said that this is avidya.
Yeah.
and explained that avidya is something which has no independent existence of its own and can be negated by correct knowledge.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to ask. I've forgotten. I'm
You're
confused.
wondering how this Anirvachaniya connects with the avidya.
Because if it can be negated by vidya, then it must be.
See, one thing we have to remember is that at moksha, nothing changes in the world around. Maya and Brahman will continue as they are. But as a jnani, you now know that all this is Maya and I am Brahman. All this is the changing nature of the universe, and you are no longer affected by it because you are Akarta, Abhokta, Brahman. This understanding is moksha. So moksha is not an experience, moksha is an understanding. So, okay, we have a few more minutes. I'll tell you a small story about this misconception about moksha. So, Swami Dayananda Saraswati was traveling by flight once from Delhi to Rishikesh. And on the flight, he was sitting next to a man, a foreigner, and then they started speaking. And so that man started telling him, I have come to India. I want to go to Rishikesh. So Swamiji asked him, why? Where are you going in Rishikesh? And so the man says, there is a great Swamiji. His name is Dayananda Swami. I want to meet him in Rishikesh. And Swamiji says, it is himself, Swamiji only. He doesn't say anything. He wants to play with him a little. So he doesn't say anything. Oh, he's like, oh, so who is he? Who is this Swamiji? And this man talks about him. And for a long time, for half an hour, they keep talking. And he is talking to Swamiji himself about Swamiji. And then they get down at Dehradun and then carry on. And once once, in Rishikesh ashram, that foreigner comes and he sees Swamiji. And now he realizes that all along that who I've been speaking to was this Swamiji only, was Swami Dayananda only. So Swamiji says, experience, his words, his quote, experience is dumb and understanding is everything. So when we talk about moksha, moksha is not an experience, it is an understanding. So just the understanding, because till now also that man had the same the experience of Swamiji, but he just didn't know that this is Swamiji. The moment he had the understanding that this is Swamiji, everything changed, right? He's like, oh, this is Swamiji. Oh, I must, bow down to him. I must this, I must that. But when he was talking in the flight, he had the experience of Swamiji, but not the understanding that this is Swamiji. It is the same with moksha. Existence as we are right now, this Brahman Maya experience we have, but the understanding we don't have. The moment the understanding comes, with that all the clarity comes, and that is what we call as moksha. But at moksha, nothing changes in the world. Maya will continue. Okay, the world will continue, but you have now intellectually negated it, intellectually eliminated it. And that is the key point. That word intellectual is the main thing. When we say at moksha the world is negated, it doesn't mean physically the world is wiped out or that it is blank. No, the world continues. But for you, the world no longer harms you. It is like a snake versus a fangless snake. Fangless means without the teeth, that poisonous teeth. So the snake without the fangs cannot hurt you at all. So that is the difference. The world no longer has the potential to cause you misery. That is moksha. So it is not an experience. Right now also you have the experience of Brahman and Maya. The only thing is you just don't know it.
Neetaji, I have just one question, I think a little bit out of this discussion. So moksha is attained after death of a person, and enlightenment is attained when you're about to attain moksha. Is that how it is?
No, moksha, there are what you are asking during living and at the point of death, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So when moksha when still living is called jivana mukti, and when that person is called a jnani now, jnani. So when the jnani's body drops, then it is called videha mukti. So the only difference, videha means without body. So he is a mukta purusha, but now he is a mukta purusha without a body. That's all.
So once you attain Jivan Mukti, a person can still live for a considerable time.
Yes, and he will eat, he will walk, he will talk, he will do everything. Okay, he also needs oxygen to breathe. Even the jnani requires food to eat.
Examples like Ramana Maharshi and Ramakrishna Paramahamsa.
Yes, of course. I'm sure even they were eating. Huh?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Medaji, I always thought that if you just only understand and don't experience, then that's also not something that is.
The thing, what we call understanding, we have levels in that. So that is why we have Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam when we talk about Jnana Yoga. The first step is Shravanam, which removes the ignorance. The first layer. Right now, there is no, knowledge also. Before what is Brahman, what is Maya, there is no knowledge also. So that instead there is misconception that I am body, I am mind. The first level is removed with Shravanam by listening to the words of the Shastra. Then after listening, obviously it doesn't immediately work. There's still some doubt. Okay, is this really the case? Okay, what about that? Okay, what is this contradiction here? So when you resolve the doubts, that is called Mananam. So at the end of Shravanam, you have Samshaya Sahita Jnanam, knowledge with some doubts. Then at the end of Mananam, you have Samshaya Rahita Jnanam, means doubtless knowledge. But even despite this doubtless knowledge, still you are not able to experience the benefits of moksha. And for that, Nididhyasanam, assimilation of the knowledge is required. So changing the habitual patterns of the mind, the tendencies of the mind, changing, taking it deeper and deeper, almost into, you can say, a subconscious portion of the mind, changing that viparyaya, the vasanas in the mind, that is nididhyasanam. And at the end of that assimilation, that is what we call as moksha. So moksha is not an event like this. It is a process, you can say. At the end of Mananam, you can be called a Jnani. At the end of Nididhyasanam, you will be Jnana Nishtha, established firmly in the knowledge. So in 2 years' time, after about at least 70% of Bhagavad Gita, all of you will be Jnanis. Okay. So we'll stop now. It is time up. Any more questions? Okay, then we can end with Purnamada. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashyate Om Shanti Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Om Tat Sat. Thank you all and see you next week.
Thank you, Medaji.
Thank you, Medaji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaskar.